interview Filippo Biondi Metatron. This one here. Okay, so we're gonna read what Mr. Filippo Biondi, so this gentleman here, had to say about me covering this discussion. Thank you so much, Cacarico, for becoming a member of the channel. Looking forward to hear your opinions on this. It's gonna be great. So if we go down here he is. That's him, Filippo Biondi. He reads, and I think what's great about this is that we can actually learn a thing or two from this gentleman, whether we agree with his findings or not. So, dear Metatron, I hope this message finds you well. Allow me to extend, I do want to have you guys on the side here. Dear Metatron, I hope this message finds you well. Allow you to extend my heartfelt gratitude for your thoughtful commentary on the interview I had the privilege of conducting with Jay Anderson. Your detailed reflections are deeply appreciated, and I'm truly honored by the trust you have placed in the acoustic scanning techniques we have employed to explore the Giza Plateau. Now, up to this point, I gotta say, guys, he's a gentleman, okay? We can disagree, and I still don't like neither Armando Mei nor Corrado Malanga, I'm gonna say it. But Filippo Biondi, I told you, I thought he was the only one I liked. I told you, and this kind of reflects that that just because he's polite doesn't mean he's right with the findings. But do keep this in mind. I think he can teach, particularly the people that were very rude and all these things, he monstered, white supremacists. Maybe he can teach a thing or two when it comes to exactly David Lopez, when it comes to professionalism and that. So I think this speaks highly about him. I must also offer my sincere apologies if my English at times may have lacked clarity during the interview. As a non-native speaker, I am ever grateful for your patience and understanding. In the spirit of fostering constructive dialogue, I would like to gently clarify a point regarding the distinction between the terms use and utilize, which I believe may enrich our discussion. In the English-speaking world, particularly in technical contexts, one often encounters references to a user manual rather than a utilization manual, highlighting a subtle but meaningful difference. Allow me to illustrate with a simple analogy. Consider a hammer and a nail, with the task of driving the nail into a wall. In this case, one would naturally use the hammer as it is designed precisely for this purpose. However, if a hammer is unavailable and only a stone and a nail are at hand, one might utilize the stone to accomplish the task. The term use thus denotes employing an object for its intended purpose, while utilize suggests an innovative or unconventional application of an object to achieve a goal. I love how you explain this, by the way, and we'll see why he's saying this, but yeah, that was pretty good. In this sense, utilize reflects a creative adaptation, often born of necessity to fulfill a purpose. Here in Italy, we frequently utilize objects in resourceful ways. I don't think he knows I'm Italian, by the way. If he tells me here in Italy, I think he thinks I'm not Italian, which is kind of funny, as the right tool is not always at hand. He's correct. This practice, I believe, sharpens our ingenuity and fosters inventive solutions, a quality I find deeply enriching. I commend you wholeheartedly for your engaging and insightful broadcast. Your dedication to exploring such topics with rigor and curiosity is truly admirable. With warmest regards, Filippo Biondi. This coming from a person whose arguments I have relentlessly attacked, particularly his two side, the other two members of the team. Not really him, because I don't have the technical expertise to discuss whether or not this new technique applied to synthetic aperture radar could work or not. I was hoping that Flint Dibble, in his dedicated video with the professor from California, who is a SAR technology expert, were going to explain to me why this supposedly cannot work, since I am dubious and skeptic when it comes to the structures under the pyramid, and yet all they did was laugh and make jokes about vibrators. So at the end of the day, if the professionals are not going to explain it, and the guy here, at least, I don't know. At that point, I can't say it. Yeah, Sicilian is an Italian, Benjamin. At that point, I don't know. I don't know if his technique can or cannot work, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to just push them to prove it for people like me, like us, prove it by making it work on sites that are underground. So not just the laboratories of the Gran Sasso d'Italia in Abruzzo, central Italy, but in general places that are under the ground. And that's the thing. Thank you so much, Jasper Owens. Man, you always give the membership. You're great. I really appreciate your support. It was received by Luna Corvus, which is an awesome name. And but I want to say, this is our gentleman answers constructive criticism, because my criticism has always been constructive, particularly when it comes to him. What I did attack ruthlessly, and I was brutal, was the presentation led and created by Armando Mei, which was supposed to be the historical foundation of the reason why they say, yeah, these shafts are the holes of Amenti, and here is why. He failed miserably, and I relentlessly attacked that presentation, and I think I did a very good job at doing it. And I also attacked Corrado Malanga's interpretations of the data acquired through the scans, because I think that he has a monumental bias, and the bias I justified by showing and translating from you directly from Italian the interviews that Corrado Malanga has done up to 4 months ago, not 12 years ago, 4 months ago, when he talks about how the aliens abduct people because they need to steal their souls, because aliens have spirits but they don't have souls, and they are there is a giant crocodile, and they smell, and they walk around with the grays, and they go through the walls, take people, take them outside, still through the walls, put them into a rotating UFO, take them upside in the air, insert microchips in order to harvest the soul, because that's what they use in order to extend the life of wounded aliens that are about to die. Because he believes all that, anyone can believe whatever they want, but I'm going to say, I'm going to see a little bias there if now you see in the data that shows shaft under the pyramids, if you're going to believe maybe it's aliens and also Lamenti, because I know that you believe that. Just like I recognize my bias as a Christian when I review data that is historical and has to do with Christianity. I have a bias. I just try to reduce it as much as possible, and one of the ways to do it is to collaborate with a team, including my lead researcher, who is an atheist, and we continuously keep each other in check, because he has his own bias, by the way, when it comes to Christianity due to his atheism, and I have my own biases because I have a desire to find proof of stuff that is in the Bible, because yeah, I love Jesus, so that's a bias, and I recognize it. So Corrado Malanga has a bias because he believes in all of this alien stuff, categorically, by the way, the giant crocodiles, that's how he says it, and therefore I am skeptical to his ability to not fall for selective bias when it comes to interpretations of these scanned technology. Regardless of all that, this is the response and the tone that Filippo Biondi has used with me, and I really appreciated it. Here is my public response to that, and I told him this, and then we read your chat. Thank you, Dr. Biondi, for the clarification. I very much appreciate your open mind and humble approach to criticism. I'm intrigued yet dubious about your technique, and I would appreciate if you could answer a few questions about the techniques and most importantly about the interpretation of the data. I'm going to ask him straight, directly, do you believe the stuff that Corrado Malanga did? I'm going to ask him that. I'd like to also underline that just like you, I'm a native Italian. I'm from Sicily. With me, you could choose what language we would use and even switch at any time if needed when you answer the questions. It would be nice to have you as a guest on my channel if that's something you think you'd like to do. Or if you are too busy with your work, I'd be happy to send you over some questions. Grazie mille, buona serata. So if we do manage to get Filippo Biondi for an interview on this channel, I would conduct the interview in English, but I would give him the opportunity, if he has a little bit of a language barrier at any time, to switch to Italian. I'll ask him to keep those sections a little bit on the short side so I don't bore the audience, but then he can speak in Italian and I will translate right off the bat, because that's something I did for 10 years. I was a teacher for 10 years, but I was a simultaneous interpreter for 3 to 4 years. So I am trained to do that. I can do it on the spot. I don't need a dictionary. I don't need anything. I can do it. I'm happy to offer him that ability so that a language barrier will not be an obstacle in that situation. And hopefully this will happen. This is a gentleman like that. And I'll have to underline that it kind of makes me feel a little proud that the Italian is being very gentlemanly, and he has received a lot of attacks from people that don't believe. And I personally don't think there are shafts out there under there. I'm not convinced, but I'm open to the possibility, but maybe there is something down there, and I would really love to see them dig. Also because the other night during live stream, because as you know, I stream Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. Central, and yesterday we were streaming, and at one point I had this connection. I noticed one thing, because whenever we think about this idea dig, you think, well, yeah, Metatron, but they can't put up an entire dig situation, like with how much do they need to dig? 648 meters? Not going to happen. It's going to cost a lot. But then I realized one thing, and that's something I want to ask him directly for confirmation. But I thought of this, guys. So let's be real. These supposed tubes, shafts, they say, are used to support the structure of the pyramid. I'll thank you so much, Lord Ra, for gifting the 5 membership, and welcome, guys. Welcome. Yeah, I told you that people are awesome. You're great, Lord. I love your name. So these are used to support the weight of the pyramid. What does that tell you? And that's why I want to ask him. Well, in order to do that, they need to reach the pyramids. You don't need to see if this is there. You don't need to dig 648 meters under the ground. You need to dig 30 centimeters, like 1 meter, nothing. You just need to, because they are touching the pyramid. How are they going to support it? Unless they mean that they support the actual, because the way I understand it is that these go through the bedrock. Because I doubt that, how are they going to place them otherwise, the ancient Egyptians? Are they going to go underneath the bedrock without? No, they touch the pyramid. So this would be the easiest digging in history. And you don't need it. If you dig for like a little bit, dig a little bit, and then you start seeing a shaft that is empty inside, with spirals of glass pulsating, made of an alloy that it's alien. I mean, yes, then I think it's worth it. But if there is nothing, you can shut this entire thing up. And you don't need to dig. I was wrong when I thought about it that way. Oh my gosh, they're never going to dig to 648 meters. They don't need to. Because by their own speculation, these should be in contact with the pyramid. So there is that. You see these guys, this is the shafts. This is the pyramid, you see? These 2 lines here, like this is the pyramid, and they reach here. In fact, I don't know how this one goes even higher. I don't know. I don't understand this stuff. But look, it's right here. So you just dig a little bit and see if there is something. To me, but I want to ask him. What do you think? Do they touch? Like, I want to ask him. Because it would be great. If he says yes, then that's a different discussion we're having at that point. Wouldn't you agree? Unless I'm misunderstanding something. Yeah, sure. Of course, David Lopez, I do consider the possibility. Limestone does have natural canals. And in that case, that it could be natural, but at least we know it at that point, right? So Giovanni says, by the way, I'm a physicist, and in theory, Biondi technique makes sense. It is based on real physics. The problem is the precision claimed. I understand that. There is no characterization of the noise and sensitivity. Yeah, I can see that. In fact, my problem is, as I say, I can't comment like you can on the techniques, but I can comment on the way he has interpreted. And I still remember Corrado Malanga making fun during the conference in Italian. He was making fun of someone who was criticizing this, because this other professional was looking at this and saying it's just noise, it's nothing. And Corrado Malanga was making fun of her, saying, well, she's colorblind, what the heck does she know? And then he's showing this little square, and the square is orange. And Corrado Malanga keeps saying, look at this black square, this brown square, whatever the heck, I don't know, I'm colorblind. And I'm like, you gotta be absolutely joking. So you are colorblind. You made fun of someone else who was colorblind, and now you can't even see the freaking colors. And I should trust you. And it's not just that, it's also all the rest. But I just thought it was hilarious. Thank you, Kellen, for supporting the stream. I appreciate how you present history and controversial topics such as ancient history. Respect. Side note, my iPhone isn't showing me how to become a member. Oh yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you so much for the support. So generally speaking, if you just go to any of my videos, there is a join button right next to Metatron. If you don't see it, I maybe try it from a computer, from a laptop. And I do appreciate anyways, whether you manage to become a member or not. I do appreciate the feeling, the sentiment. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, pareidolia, we discussed this yesterday, the sort of tendency that we humans have. And it's in fact hardwired in our mind to see patterns, particularly faces, when there is nothing. This is something that happens. Didn't Zawi, you're doing it on purpose. Didn't Zawi say there was a giant bedrock stone base? Yeah, that's what they all say. So theoretically, I mean, I don't know if it's considered giant, but there is a solid bedrock, yes. So these shafts would have to go through it at that point. Thank you very much, Pax, for the support. Metatron Chris White did a brilliant debunk of ancient aliens with companion websites, actual language experts and receipts. 3-hour epic. It's on YouTube. I'll definitely check it out. Chris White, easy to remember. I think of Chris Redfield from Resident Evil and add white supremacist, and then I can remember that. Thank you. Biondi is decent exactly in his scientific explanation and understanding. The other two yeah, that's how I see it. I don't use this term, but yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. I have no problem with Filippo Biondi And even more so now that he's been so polite and decent and respectful. But then again, it is what it is. Why you want to practice, this is what this says, 日本語を練習しなければならない. I have to practice Japanese. That's what's written here. Yeah, sure, you should do that. ぜひ日本語を練習してください。素晴らしい。Anytime. If you want to know anything in Japanese, I'm happy to discuss. You're also Italian. There you go. Listen to 4-Hour Con. Oh my God, he was terrible. But for me, the worst part was the first part, Armando Mei, when he's like, oh yeah, the whole Giza complex and plateau, but the complex, all the structures, they date to 36,400 years ago, which makes what Robert Bovell says to look like, at this point, it's child's play, because that guy was already pushing it to 10,000 BC, but he was like, no, 36,000 years ago. And I'm like, okay, well, that's intriguing. I always like stuff like that. So I'm like, why? Because, I mean, he says a civilization did this, but we don't believe currently that there is what we would call technically a civilization 36,000 years ago. So that's intriguing. And then he's like, oh, well, because when you date it, you shouldn't just date the pyramids. You should date the entire complex. And I'm confused, because it's not like the Valley Temple dates back to 36,000 years. So what is he on about? The sand? I'm a little confused. Arigato gozaimasu. どういたしまして。Robinson, thank you for the support. Do you know how the pyramids were excavated? Did they simply reach the base of the pyramids and stop digging? It's possible, but I mean, no, I don't know how they did it. But it's also possible that there wasn't as much of a layer, because it's at least 5,000 years ago. So the geology of it would have looked different. And then again, if the alt history people actually have this one right, and the pyramids date back to 10,000 years ago, or maybe even further, if this is proven, then who knows? I mean, it would have looked differently. That's one of the things with archaeology. It's always about strata, isn't it? Because layers after layer after layer, they do change the environment.